Welcome back. And experiential learning and employment. We ask ourselves, as you join us in the discussion, dear viewers and listeners, public university be a solution for. We will be looking at exactly what experiential learning is all about and the employment diversity. In this, we are blessed to have one of the guests that will give us some more insights in regard to career and employability, because it is still a very good question, but which is not a resolved question on whether whosoever go to the university gets employment opportunity. And to the viewers are saying, what you're talking about is obvious. We are struggling in this country with the challenge of unemployment. And Professor was able to talk about it, especially looking at the existing problem. And the existing problem, which will require all of us to think, but basically the policy makers outside there and the parents, because you are part of this discourse, to ensure that we bridge the gap. Having said that, we are aware that experiential learning, it is a process of learning through experience and is more narrowly defined as learning through reflection on doing. One say hands-on learning. And you are the specialist, you are an expert. And I would have loved if this kind of innovation in the administration structure could go as far as secondary schools, as you're saying that the issue should not, the problem should be defined straight away from either nursery. And by the time if one goes to secondary school A level, should be able to have been identified where he can specialize or she can specialize to come out better and be employed. So having said that, please, it's a pleasure to have you. And the question is whether, looking at Victoria University and maybe other universities, their existence, will they solve this challenge of unemployment and also the access to employment opportunity in diversity? It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Now, to start with, I think it's important for us to understand what experiential learning really is. Mm-hmm. You see, parents or guardians are investing money into their children or family members to go to university to study something so they can make something out of themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, we are a communal, we're people who are really embraced by being communal. So one person supports the other, whether you support your cousin. So there is that need to ensure that everyone gets something out of whatever development plan it is. Mm-hmm. So experiential learning is simply the fact that you're going to school, but you're getting theory, right? The need is that you apply that theory into industry so you get to understand whether you are actually working through what your endeavors are. So if I go to school, for example, to study journalism, I should be able to go on TV or radio or any other space where I can practice what I'm learning from school. However, it's important for us to understand that experiential learning also starts from home. Because what we're saying is when students come into university, our responsibility is to ensure that they made the right choice of program. During my times, and those times are not really so far away when I did my first degree, a lot of us were applying to programs because a friend was applying,
Which times are those?
I am a millennial, so...
you refer to us which year?
I will not say, but I'm a millennial, so at least you know.
That is part of experience discussion.
But you see, what I'm saying is there was a moment where we didn't know what to do. We just applied to programs because it sounds good, because it's affordable, because a friend is. But now we're saying, let's make it more meaningful. Now, I'm an enthusiast of education, right? And I'm one of those people who says I'm part of the global agenda, and so should we all. Because as a country, as a nation, we should be able to bring about innovations that are going to serve the world, right? And so I'll give an example of Sustainable Development Goal 4. We're talking about quality education. Many of us as Ugandans do complain a lot about the quality of education. So we spot the problems, but we're not being part of the solution. So at Victoria University, we're saying that, okay, we realize that we have other challenges that are perhaps structural. Some have been for a long time, some are policy related, some are even people related. As a people, we are excluding ourselves from the education of our children. Take, for instance, in the household. A lot of parents send their children to school to study. So you pay school fees, but you never follow up. Are those your interests? Is that what you really like to do? What other opportunities can we tap into so we can help you be able to build a career that is sustainable? We are much more interested in getting jobs than building careers. And that's why today you see, someone asks you, do you have a job? And you ask, what kind of job? And someone says, any job. You should be able to know what you really want. So from the starting point, we're saying that we do not make the decision for you. It's a personal decision, because you as a person understands what your interest is. So if your interest is in marketing, for example, and what we're doing is that when you come into university, you've applied to a program, maybe business administration. Once we interrogate that interest in marketing, then we're able to help you build on that in terms of understanding who you are as a person, your personal identity, how you can be able to tap into that and tell your personal story and own it authentically. Because a lot of times we want to be other people, we don't want to be who we are. And so what we're helping students understand is that your story is rich as a person. What the employer wants to know is, what can you do with the degree you have obtained? It's not about your first degree. It's not about a first-class degree. It's about what you can do with your first-class degree. And so what we're doing is to support students in identifying their interests so that they can link that into the program they're studying. So for example, for those who are in year one, if you realize that you apply to a program which you could potentially, you see yourself nowhere in that practice, we're able to help you within the period where you have to apply for change of program. You're able to identify that your interests are elsewhere, and so we support you on the journey to get into the program that you will within which you'll build a career. So what we're doing is we're supporting students, and we're saying at the end of the day, you must be able to own your personal story and own your own development. The challenge we have is, and I think that for me this is an echo to parents out there, because as a career specialist at university, I've also realized that some students actually feel like you have to force them. You know, when you're taking a goat to eat grass and it's insisting, it's resisting, you know, where you're sending it to. But you realize actually, once you get there, then you realize, oh, this is great for me. So as we're out there saying there's a lot of unemployment, we're also saying the quality of us as a people is still lacking. We should be able to enjoy nice things, like appreciate things that we have. For example, appreciate things that have been given to us to help us plan our own development. So what we're doing in terms of our Career Employability Hub is we've designed a curriculum, and that curriculum covers different modules. And those modules look into the skills that you require as a person, understanding your personal identity, professionalism, for example. The challenges we have in the workplace, a lot of things that are happening today, there's a lot of politics in the workplace, and we're saying we want our people to go into the workplace understanding that these things really happen, and when they happen, this is what you can do.
Okay, we will be going together, and in the interaction, two major concepts just dropped into my mind, and which fits into what we are discussing.
Yes.
There's what we call career guidance, and which is mostly that you've been also tackling.
Yes.
And also there's curriculum development. And the two, building on the submission of Professor Lawrence Muganga, it is believed that the moment a child, the moment a student, of whatever level, gets to understand the career pursuit, his career or her career pursuit at a later stage, it tends also to waste time. I don't know, having identified that, it's a gap.
Yes.
And it's a demand. By the time one is to be guided a career to struggle, you see, when you don't do this, I was told, that's what the conversation when you meet students, those who are going to school. I was told that if you don't study chemistry, math, and physics, you will not make it in life. And the child or the pupil, student, whatever level, just begins to live in fear. Now, through your experience and linking into our discussion, how can we have a process that will drive us to have products, whether they're university products, but they are coming from somewhere, who will not have fear of life and yet they are sure of their existence to get a job?
Okay, so we need to all understand that we're individual contributors. You see, one of the things that I find we're not doing well is being collaborators in this space. So we are able to identify problems. I don't even think it's identify problems, but complain about problems, but we are not willing to be part of the solution. This morning while I drove to work, I had, I think it was on one of the radio stations that was airing about an incident that happened where a student sat for another student's exam. And this is very, very appalling that we live in a world where, in a country where young people are actually flexing over exams. So they're not going into school to learn but to pass exams, and that's very, very inappropriate. And so I think that as a people, what the challenge is for us now is to focus on how we can twist our policy. So our policymakers have to be a part of this program, but also our parents within the household have to be. Because why should I struggle with chemistry and God knows what if I know that I want to be a journalist? What is the importance of me struggling with such subjects? So this is a moment where we're saying households have to play a part. So that is the parent identifying that my child is interested in interior design. Why am I stressing them with other kinds of studies that are not going to be really meaningful for them? Right?
To you, in your recommendation,
yes,
or the insight you are sharing with us, when should a child be helped to align himself or herself in what exactly should discover of who she or he is, especially in the pursuit of career?
As early as we possibly can, and that's why I'm saying that we all need to realize our responsibility, because as a parent, you're able to see that your child is good at breaking things in the house and putting them all together, right? We should be able to follow up, right? So as a parent, then you realize my child is good at this, and you also have conversations with your children to understand what their inner beings are in terms of what they want to do in the future. So and that doesn't mean that it's written in stone. It will change. I've got a child, and my child today tells me they want to take on Elon Musk. Then you ask questions, they want to do, start building cars. Another time you talk, they want to be building something different, and that's okay. The importance is in us understanding that we have a role to play. So before we blame the government, we need to play our role as educators in our households.
You know what, I was sharing our discussion is about experiential learning, and I just want straight to go to you. How did you discover yourself of who you were to be and be relevant in this generation?
Wow, that was really, really purposeful.
And then we go to
So mine was a purposeful journey, by the way. When I did my first degree, I had a lot of things I thought about, and that's the reality that I tell all students that go through our employability space, that you are going to be confused because you'll want a lot of things. I wanted to be a diplomat, I wanted to be an FBI agent, I wanted to do journalism, I wanted to be a banker, I wanted to be almost everything on this planet, right? But for me, I think that what's important is that if you are intentional about the journey, you continue asking questions to yourself. How do I feel? What gives me that strike? There is something that you feel, because we're talking about strength development approach. So you need to be able to recognize your strengths and tap into those strengths. Now, someone else could say that I was lucky.
And remember, I'm referring to you.
Yes.
And I want to, because someone wants to learn from you.
Absolutely.
And possibly in the future I will say, I want to speak good English like that lady. And maybe it was not something which has been developed on the table.
Yes.
There's a way how it started.
Yes. So when I finished my first degree, I was retained in the department to teach, and I taught for a few months, so I moved into banking. Then for me, the turning point was when I did my master's degree. So I had an idea of, like I said, I wanted to be a diplomat. So I applied to London School of Economics, and I was going to do international relations. So then I was contacted by the department head of my program, so my business anthropologist, and she's asking me questions as to why I had applied to an international development program.
From business?
Yeah, no, from social anthropology, because I'd done first degree in social anthropology. So then she's realizing I'm applying for international development. So I would score more points actually doing a master's degree in anthropology and development, which was finally given to me. So I told her my needs, and I said, I wanted to be able to be exposed to international development, but also a bit of politics and other areas. And she says, but you have a package in this. With anthropology, you can do anthropology, but you can still do international development program. So I I did that, and while at university, we had this, and that's why I actually still tell Victoria University students that you need to take advantage of this opportunity. Because universities do strike in and give you a couple of things, packages that will help you. And for me, my turning point was a brown lunch bag session. Now, that session happens at a departmental level where you have people that have done the same program as you come in to tell you about what they're doing in industry. Now, for me, the turning point, one day we had a business anthropologist, one of the consultants who is so big in London, comes to attend one of those programs. He had also studied from LSE, and so he tells us about what he does. So I say to myself, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Because as an anthropologist, I wanted something, I wanted medical anthropology, I thought. It didn't work for me. I'm like, okay, that's not for me. This guy comes and talks about his day-to-day, and I say, that is my life. That's the life I want. And I realize now, for me, in terms of how I practice, I practice anthropology in business organizations. So what I do is to study people through culture in business organizations. So for me, the interaction, the strength to be able to speak up, to interact with people, to understand what their problems are so I can design solutions, that just worked out for me. So then after listening from him, I had to follow up and be a part of particular groups that were practicing within that space, learn more, Google. A lot of this information is available on Google, but we're just lazy to find out. So I live with that responsibility, that opportunity to understand more about the subject, and then I was able to.
So because of that background, that's what the passion to have you call it business anthropology, right?
Yes.
And now it takes us to employability specialist. You have the understanding of the cultures, the background, and you do it with your passion, you do it with your heart.
Yes.
Please, dear viewers, that is a very good lesson to take home, especially knowing the passion of your child and yourself, who may be still in that chain, in that process of attaining what you should attain in terms of learning, and then you maximize your potential. I also talk about myself, but later, and since I'm not a guest, let me give it back to Professor Lawrence Muganga. We are looking at to engage her in that direction, because this is a university experiential learning, and we will be cheating the viewers if we don't talk about ourselves, since we are part of the university processes. It's a pleasure to have you again, and basically to unleash what makes it possible for the experiential learning processes in the university to change our Uganda.
Very good. Now, let me paint a picture for us, including the viewers there, to understand that unless we get so determined to change what is going on amidst ourselves, that's when we'll see a success story happen in this country. And I'm sure there are some viewers, especially those who have a stake in this, that may not like what I'm going to say, but it is what is right.
So you will say it and also give us a general overview of this knowledge.
I'll come to this
in
right?
5 minutes. Yes, sir.
About the book, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll come to that. Yeah. Now, let me say this. Right now, there are two things that are contradicting. There is something we call real life and real world, the real world. And there's something called school. All right? And you're going to ask me how. There is something we call a big daycare that takes care of teenagers called boarding school. A big what? Daycare. Called big boarding school that is helping us take care of our teenagers, younger adults.
Boarding school.
Called boarding school.
Boarding school.
Why? We have been hoodwinked to think that that's where learning happens, quality learning. Big lie.
Boarding school.
Boarding school. Big lie. It is the place, actually, where brain development of your child ceases actually to grow normally. Bad news for fellow Ugandans, but that's the fact.
Those who take their children to boarding.
No sane country that I know has actually, those so-called developed countries that has a boarding school. But because they downloaded it on us and realized the dangers of boarding schools, they walked away from them They left them with us, and we are working so hard to send our children in boarding schools. What are the dangers? The dangers are a child wakes up at 5 or 4 a.m., goes to shower, prepare, and goes for prep, right? And then they read, some are dozing, hitting their heads on desks, and then before they know, a bell is ringing. Go for breakfast. From breakfast, class, 7. Until 6 p.m., they are still going to what? Class. They are still in class. So somehow they go to prepare, shower, everything, prep, until almost 10 p.m. Now, what kind of brain do you think that child has? Yet, others who are craving for creativity, innovation, those who crave for creating startups, economic transformation, then development, creating employment opportunities, they are actually making sure that their child starts the so-called school 9 or 8:30 a.m. and ends at 2 p.m. Why? They have enough time to rest till 9. And then they have enough time off school, these things, then they are learning how to live in society with other people. Because society where you send your kids in a boarding school is not, that's a mass production plant where like you're making bottles of water that are similar. You have 10-year-olds in the same space, 12-year-olds in the same space, 16-year-olds in the same space. Which real world looks like that? A student ought to come back home, mingles with the adults, listens to advice, sees the challenges that the family is facing, the problems they're facing, and they are trying to come up with a solution, and they're involved in this kind of thinking. They go to within the community and see the problems, and they try to solve these problems together. That's the real world. But for us, we are manufacturing people from age 4 or 5 to the age 17, and then we are bringing them back to society. And you're thinking that they are going to be creative, they are going to be innovative, and they're going to be problem solvers. Yet, even the education we bring to them does not actually help them.
You're a parent, you are going to guide us in this.
Yeah, wait, listen to me. Do you know the education we subject them to? We don't even if you take your child to hospital, you the parent who is watching me tonight, do they start by injecting this child a needle or an injection? No. There is a triage, there's a nurse somewhere who is going to first get something put on the heart. What is the, how is the high blood pressure or the heart rate, and then the temperature, and then the ears, they check everything, the tests, and then they send you to the doctor when they have actually an entire report on your child. And now they know what to prescribe to this child. And then they start prescribing. Where have you seen anywhere, in any school in this country, where they first understand, your child is Jessica. Let's talk to Jessica. What is your passion, Jessica? What is that thing?
That is which age and level?
Doesn't matter. Understand the child. Understand who this child is.
Just from P1.
Yes, just watch it. The parents can tell you the story of this child. And then you're going to nurture them according to who they are, right? So once you understand one's passion, one's interests, one's strength, then you can start educating them. That is not happening. What is happening today is the moment you have some money that you think you're so caring about your child, you send them to the big daycare because you are too busy to take care of your child. And I can't blame you. This is the world we live in. Maybe you need to make sure they are caged somewhere for the whole year, and you also do your transactions here and there and make sure you get something, and you again go back and pay these schools. That's how we have been hoodwinked to think. I'm sure those who own boarding schools are not going to like this, but that's the truth.
Let's face the reality, Prof.
And then you asked me.
I'm coming to you on that.
Yes.
Because you are giving us a very hard discussion.
But that's the reality.
And
we are actually doing, I don't want to use the word genocide, but we are killing our own generation.
Yes, let me come to that. You know, our discussion is looking at the solutions for citizen socio-economic demand.
Right.
You need the school fees
Correct.
for the children.
Yes.
My wife is supposed to go and work very early, equally, around like by 6 is already on the road. Is already on the road, want to come to reach the place of work very early. Myself, I'm supposed to do the same. And at the end of it all, as even of these days, the tendency of having house helpers, it is almost some of us that scope, that kind of action, there are those who are diverting from it. No house helper. You, the father, is supposed to go to work very early, report early. The mother, equally the same. There is traffic jam. And yet you must look for the school fees. And you find yourself in that dilemma of this economy, which is calling for serious attention. And now want to face the reality. How can one approach that? This is, like for instance, those who are viewing us in the urban setting here. I find myself, I'm giving you an example. I find myself saying, now I will not have the time to fight with this jam. We don't have a house helper. Someone now to begin now struggling with these children, wake up, prepare, even that early time we are talking about. The way out, I end up taking my child to a boarding school. I'm giving myself in as a case study.
Correct. And you're not.
And I don't have what to do.
Dr.
So guide us and the viewers, what can one do?
Dr. Tindiewa, you're not alone. This is a national calamity. This is a national epidemic, if you wish. That if we don't come back on a problem-solving table as a country, we are going to continue destroying the number one resource that this country needs.
Action point in the middle is that what can one do?
Now, what can you, before we reach on the individual level, what happened to policymakers getting together to understand the magnitude of this problem? What happened? Where are they? When we talk about education, there is also labor policies.
Yes.
All right? There is also trying to define who said that work should only start at 8 and 5. People have work shifts in other countries, right? Where you can come and start at 5 a.m. and then finish by 8 a.m. in the morning. And then other people come in. Now, your shift becomes friendly, friendly to you due to other obligations that you have. So we have to rethink about this, not only education, right? So I remember in Canada at some point, I had to take my kids to school, drop them there, okay? Luckily there was a bus, that one took care of that, but I have to pick them at 2:55 p.m. So now that means my shift, I have to go back. We don't work hours to see us from 8 to 5 or 9 to 6. No, we work the deliverables. There's something you have to deliver. So I could go by 6, I'm in my office. By 1, I'm done.
Would you allow me to go for a commercial break? You come and take us from there.
Definitely.
Thank you. Let's go for the commercial break. And this debate is a long one. It has given us the experiences, the experiential learning. And we want to look at how we can utilize our quality time, but again, we'll be productive and be able to contribute to the economy. Please, see you in the next session.